Welcome to the Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems for Agriculture Risk and Reward webinar series. This webinar series is supported by 4 faculty, starting with Dr. Mengmeng Gu at Texas A&M AgriLife, Rusty Rumley, the staff attorney at the National Agricultural Law Center, Dr. Jo Marie Maha, remote sensor engineer at Clemson University, and Dr. Jim Robbins with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. The purpose of this session is to provide an overview of aircraft systems. This session is part 4 of a 7-part series. It is important to note that these webinars are partially supported by a grant from the Southern Extension Risk Management Education Center. Another disclaimer, there are no endorsements, or implied or discrimination intended for firms or references included or excluded from this presentation. This webinar is for educational purposes only and not meant to provide legal or regulatory advice for the safe and legal operation of any small unmanned aircraft system. It is the responsibility of the SUAS user to read, understand, and follow all FAA regulations. Let's get started. Again, simply to mention that this is one webinar of the 7 webinar modules that are included in this series. The webinar team has developed several handouts that are available at the URL on your screen, or contact one of the presenters directly. Remember that there are lots of issues to discuss when dealing with SUAS, and this session will provide an overview of the types of unmanned aircraft available to you. The 2 broad categories available to you are rotary and fixed wing. We will begin by covering rotary aircraft. These can range from small Hubsan X4 to the larger Raptor from Tactical Electronics. Another aspect of the Part 107 regulations was the introduction of the small class of UAS, which is defined as aircraft systems of less than 55 pounds. This category was borrowed from the registration system in Canada. If we roll the clock back to early 2015, when a draft of Part 107 regulations were released for public comment, we determined that there were fewer aircraft frames than compared to today. If we fast forward to early 2017 and we visit a now expired website called specoutdrones.com, we see that the number of SUAS options had grown to over 1,400. Kind of an overwhelming number of choices to pick from. To help users reduce the risk associated with purchasing an aircraft, an extension fact sheet was developed by the University of Arkansas. The fact sheet is focused on 2 areas. One, to describe in writing what some of the features and terminology are, and the second, to provide some guidance in organizing the process to purchase a drone. The process to purchase a SUAS would be no different to the effort you would put into purchasing a car or home. On the left side of your comparison table, entering the features that are important in your purchasing decision. Across the top, enter some makes and models of aircraft that meet your general criterion. Since we have been involved with SUAS since 2010, one of the features that has improved most is flight navigation software. In the early years, most flights were manual, and as time passed, some automated flight features were added, such as automatic takeoff and landing. Today, even for fairly low-cost systems, the flight software is quite advanced. Even most low-end UAS now offer autonomous flight planning, which can be a useful tool for a variety of agricultural tasks. This advanced mission planning is essential for advanced aerial imaging and for repeated tasks such as spraying or scouting. It is important to note that pilots must still be proficient in flying their aircraft manually, as loss of communication links is not uncommon. A new word to your vocabulary may come up is the word gimbal. A gimbal is a pivoted support. The counter to this is where your camera or sensor is fixed to the aircraft body and thus cannot be moved. Lower cost models may offer a gimbal, but you may not have a great deal of flexibility in changing out sensors, so keep this in mind during your purchase. For research or advanced professional applications, you likely need a flexible pitch and roll compensated gimbal that you can attach a variety of sensors to. These gyro-compensated gimbal platforms add to the stability of your sensor imagery, thus improving the likely quality of your output. Many outlets now offer bundles, which would include the aircraft, possibly a carrying case, and needed extra components such as propellers and batteries. Bundles may be a good option for a beginner. The next category of aircraft is fixed wing. A notable difference of fixed wing compared to rotary aircraft is takeoff and landing. To gain flight, fixed wing requires some kind of assistance, whether from a launcher, a runway, or a person pushing it into the air. This is just a pretty photograph from the Robata website showing how a person helps assist the Eclipse aircraft to get into flight. Although the price is dated, it gives you an idea that in general, the cost of fixed-wing platforms are typically more expensive compared to rotary. But, as we will discuss in a moment, fixed-wing has certain advantage over rotary and may be the best platform for your particular agricultural application. Another example of fixed-wing aircraft that is used in agricultural applications is from Precision Hawk. This table attempts to summarize a comparison between the advantages and disadvantages of rotary versus fixed-wing aircraft. The key is to figure out what is most important to your specific application and select the aircraft that best suits your needs. Dr. Kevin Price from AgPixel elegantly demonstrated an example of the difference in flight area that can be covered between rotary and fixed wing. In his example, the rotary was able to cover 50 acres per day, while the fixed wing on the right covered 300 acres. Now for some general helpful hints regardless of your platform. Users at any level will need spare parts. We have also found over time that keeping items organized and separated for each aircraft is beneficial. A typical case ready for the field would contain spare parts and specific tools necessary to maintain each aircraft system. Another helpful hint is to purchase an additional practice aircraft if you have limited to no previous flight experience. It is much less painful to crash a $50 aircraft than a $1,000 system during the early stages of learning to fly remote aircraft. Our handout includes examples of some of the many types of what are now called practice aircraft. We should prepare you for the inevitable fact that at some point you will experience a crash. We have yet to meet an experienced flyer that has not had at least one crash. Hopefully, by being well prepared, your event will be minor. There are certainly many organizations that you could join related to unmanned aircraft, but one in particular is worth mentioning. The Academy of Model Aeronautics has many resources that SUAS users would find useful. As far as purchasing an aircraft, what is our 5-year vision? For medium and large agricultural producers, we anticipate that most will own their own SUAS to at least take marketing imagery and monitor plant or animal health. Smaller producers are more likely to use a commercial service to provide the same services but may have a small unit for marketing and sales. Remember that a key goal of this webinar series is to help agricultural producers make better purchasing decisions. Remember, before making a purchasing decision, to evaluate everything that is needed. After careful examination, you may decide that at this time, for your specific needs, the better option is to hire outside service providers to provide the products that you require. Obviously, this is not a one-way equation, all or nothing. After a careful analysis, you may determine that it makes the best business sense to own your own aircraft and sensor, but utilize an outside service to process your imagery. Again, remember that the speaker notes for this webinar and other resources are available through our website and from the presenters. This concludes Part 4 on aircraft. We hope that this series helps reduce your risk in dealing with drones for agricultural applications.